Good morning, everyone. Hope we're having a fantastic day. Seems like I have screwed up Facebook again. Am I just the worst person at technology or what? Give me 1 second, everyone, and I will have this under control. All right. Every time you go to stream, there's a little code you have to enter. It's actually not a little code. It's about 100 random characters long. But you have to remember to enter into Facebook, otherwise it won't function properly. I've done it now. So, we're going to go live on Facebook too. There we go. Thanks for bearing with me. Greetings from Germany. Rakius, welcome. Good morning. Hope you're having a great day. Unfortunately, today is going to be a short episode of A Little Coffee because I have to go pick up James from preschool. It was his first day of preschool the other day. How cute. And every once in a while, I'm going to have to take him to school. I'm going to have to pick him up, etc., etc. Today, I have to pick him up at 9:30. The first week, they get the kids used to going to school. James doesn't need that help. He's like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go. And he's like, no, mommy, you stay outside. I'm going to school now. So anyway, first week short. I got to pick him up at 9:30. So, sorry. Shannon, hello. From Canada. We have all people from all over the world here. I want to thank you for joining me bright and early in the morning. Also, more bad news. I'm not going to be here Friday or Monday or Wednesday or maybe the next Friday because I am going to Atlantic City. They have a World Poker Tour tournament. They have a bunch of side events. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going with one of my friends from New York, and we're going to take a car down. It's going to be nice and relaxing, and it's going to be fun. So tomorrow in the evening, I'm playing the Almighty Tournament, a $400 buy-in tournament. It's going to, I think it's like day 6A or something like this. I'm not even sure. But we're going to go there, we're going to shoot it in, and it's going to be a good time. And then there's a Heads Up tournament, which I may or may not play. There is 3,500 main event, 1,500 side event bounty. So, not a huge series in terms of buy-ins, but one of my friends wanted to go, and it's very close. And Borgata's nice. So they have a few things going for them that makes it worth going. I'm going to be there for the next week. I'll make a video blog probably, if anything happens. It'll be good. Apparently, the Almighty has a $750K guarantee. So if you win this $400 buy-in tournament, you get, $150K? It's pretty good. It's always nice to get 300 buy-ins. Ryan G says, last night you chopped 4 ways. Your content is really helping. Well, that's the goal. And today, the other day, I posted on Instagram what topics are asking you all for topics for A Little Coffee, and one came up consistently, and that was, how do you play middle pairs? I've been asked this a million times, so we're going to discuss it. Louis Philippe, the Mayor of Canada, hello again. We have Vlad from Romania, all over the world. Thank you all for being here this morning. All right, so how do you play middle pairs? And really, you have to understand that if you're asking how do you play middle pairs, you're probably not thinking about poker appropriately because the fact that you have a middle pair doesn't really matter. What matters is, do you have a premium made hand, a marginal made hand, a draw, or nothing? Junk. It's all that really matters. We discussed this thoroughly at pokercoaching.com. If you've never signed up, it's completely free to get a trial membership. Just go right to pokercoaching.com, sign up for the free membership, and go through the homework. You will see very clearly in the homework that you need to figure out which of your hands are premium, draws, marginal, or junk, and that's going to go a long way to helping you develop a fundamentally sound strategy that you can implement on a regular basis. Alexander said, you just signed up for the Poker Coaching Premium to get the masterclass and you're loving it. Great. That's exactly what we're doing. All right, so first things first, middle pairs pre-flop. The question that was specifically asked is, how do you play them from the blinds, facing a razor? Well, very easy. If you have 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s, 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, just call, see a flop, try to make a set, or a decent middle pair. Or an overpair, right? That's really it. It's easy. This is assuming we're not very shallow. If we have like 15 or 20 big blinds, we can jam it all in. But if we have more than 20 or 25 big blinds, it's often best to call and just try to flop a reasonable hand, right? And usually the nice thing about middle pairs is often you're going to have a marginal made hand or a premium made hand, which is pretty good. If you're facing limpers, say you're playing 2-5 and 3 people limp and you have pocket 8s in the big blind, you can limp. You can just check. It's okay. Same thing from the small blind. You're allowed to just limp. Alternatively, you can raise if they're going to call you with all sorts of junk. Now, if they're just going to fold out their like ace-4 offsuits and only call with good big suited cards and good big pairs and whatnot, maybe you don't want to do that because you're not going to be in such great shape against their calling range. So you want to figure out how you're going to fare against the calling range. But I think what happens to a lot of people is they see a hand like pocket 8s and they think, okay, I have to raise this. Then they raise, they get 4 callers, flop comes 10-8, 10-7-6, or 10-7-4, or queen 4-2. They're like, okay, I guess I have to keep betting. Then they keep betting into 3 or 4 or 5 people with a very marginal made hand that has no potential to improve, or little potential to improve on the turn and the river. And that's a big mistake. So, if you do raise with your 8s pre-flop, and everybody calls you see it flop 4 ways, unless you have an overpair, you probably just want to be checking. And I know that a lot of people think they want to be betting to make people fold out their unpaired high cards. The problem is that when you bet, no better hands fold, and sometimes worse hands will raise and make you fold. Tampa Poker says, are we talking cash games or tournaments? Both! It doesn't matter. When you're playing 100 big blinds deep or 50 big blinds deeper, whatever, the game's played very similarly. Don't think that tournaments and cash games are significantly different because they're not. What's the optimal bankroll for online tournaments? Read jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll. That's my bankroll Bible. All your bankroll questions are answered there in that document. All right, so now that we know, very often pre-flop, you just want to see the flop and try to get a hand. After the flop, when you have the premium made hand, when you have a set, very often you just want to be betting. You do not want to be checking your sets, especially middle and bottom set, because middle and bottom set do not block top pairs. They will always call you, right? Say you do raise with pocket 9s and it comes 9-4-2, maybe it's okay to check. But if you have 4s or 2s on 9-4-2, you just want to be betting. And slow playing is not a good strategy, especially when you're playing multi-way, because someone's going to have something. And imagine on 9-4-2, if you check and then the turn is a 6, a 5, or a 3, now your opponent's going to have random straights, right? Obviously, you're not so worried about it because you just have top set, but you do need to be concerned with that. Do we widen our range when there are antes? Yes, you should. But that's not a cash game versus tournament question. That's more of a, do we widen our ranges because there are antes in play? Both in cash games and tournaments, you want to widen your range. Does this strategy change when we're playing really deep compared to 100 big blinds deep? Not really. Small pairs, you're not trying to blast your money in the pot. Like, say there is a raise and 2 callers and you have pocket 8s, you should virtually never 3-bet. Like, 3-betting is lighting your money right on fire. Because what's going to happen is they're all going to fold, which is fine. That's great. Usually they're not, though. But when you do get called, you have a hand that's going to play very poorly post-flop. This is especially bad when you have like 50 or 60 to 100 big blinds. It's really bad to raise in that spot. If you have 250 big blinds, maybe you can raise because they're all going to call you a lot. When you flop a set, you just get to play a gigantic pot. But if you think about it, the pot's already 12 or 15 big blinds pre-flop if you just call. So you can easily bet 15 on the flop, 40 on the turn, 100 on the river, and be almost all in for 200 big blinds, right? So it's not like you have to blast it to try to make the pot bigger. So don't think you have to re-raise with the small and medium pairs. It's just not, you just don't need to, right? Because if you do make a set, you can build the pot, and the hands that have plenty of equity against you, like Queen Jack suited and Ace 10 suited and Ace King and pocket jacks, those aren't going to fold to your 3-bet, right? So whenever you do get called when you 3-bet, you're not happy. Unless you flop a set, which just doesn't happen all that often. For example, under the gun will open. You have 6s plus 100%, a 5 sometimes. Now you have, should you raise weaker hands? No. If you're playing from early position, you want to be making the nuts, especially as you get deeper and deeper and deeper. So you should typically not raise stuff like small pairs from early position. If you look at all the GTO programs, they recommend folding small pairs. Quite often, they'll recommend folding pocket 2s on the button, which seems crazy to a lot of people, but it plays so horrifically bad heads up that you just don't even want to play it. Because if you raise and get called, it's just always awful. But from early position, I don't take it that far because that assumes the opponents play well. Very often your opponents will be making errors, and if your opponents are making errors, then you get to play more hands, typically. So I'm usually raising sixes and better from early position, and then all pairs from middle position. But that's like a little loose. But I'm okay playing a little bit loose because I feel like I navigate post flop better than most people. But if you don't, then you need to be tighter, if anything. Look at this beautiful coffee. It's made by the McLaughlin Coffee Roasters. They gave me this coffee, and it's actually very good. It's like a good, solid, dark, rich color. It's nice. Okay, look at all these notes I scribbled down this morning. So, multi-way. Say someone raises, someone calls, you call on the button, and the big blind calls. Say it comes 9-4-2, and they check to you. That's a very good spot to bet. Because now, if you bet, people are going to fold out lots of hands with equity, right? Like, if they have queen-jack on 9-4-2, they're going to fold. If it comes 10-9-2 and you have pocket eights, you probably don't want to bet because now it's just too likely someone has something, right? Say someone bets in front of you and you have eights on 9-4-2. You have to make a bit of a read here, right? Often it's fine to call one time and then fold on the turn. That's the default play. But if, say someone bets on 9-4-2 and someone calls and you have eights, just fold. Get out of the way. What ends up happening is a lot of people think, oh, I had eights pre-flop, so I can't fold it after the flop because I had eights. Not recognizing that your pre-flop hand strength doesn't really matter all that much once you get to the turn, or the flop to turn in the river, right? And you also want to consider how well you're going to play on the later streets, meaning, are you going to be getting bluffed? Do you have potential to improve? Do you have the potential to bluff your opponents? And you're going to find that a hand like pocket eights on 10-9-2 doesn't really have great bluffing opportunities on the turn, and because like top and middle pair are not going to fold if you bet. And it doesn't really have potential to improve, because if you get an 8, you could still be beat. And if you get a 7 or a 6 or a jack to give you a draw, it's not a great draw. Also, it doesn't really have the potential to get called by worse stuff. And for that reason, very often you want to be folding these hands relatively early. And I'm telling you, the people who ask this question, I'm very confident what happens is it goes raise, call. They 3-bet their 8s every time. It's like, oh, I got a pair. They get called or 4-bet, and it just goes to hell. And they're wondering, what am I doing wrong? Well, you're 3-betting. Stop 3-betting this hand that really wants to see the flop and go from there. And then on the flop, I'm sure they're like raising. Say it goes bet call on 9-4-2 and they have 8s, they're probably raising it. Thinking, all right, I probably have the best hand. But that is not a good enough reason to raise. You need to have the best hand when you get called roughly 50% of the time or more. And also, that play must also be better than just calling or folding. And you're going to find that very often, when you have a marginal made hand, pretty much across the board, you want to be keeping the pot realistically small unless you have a huge range advantage. And on 9-4-2, you don't have a big range advantage. So that leads to you not having much of a raising range. Let's see. 4s and the big blind. It comes 9-4-2. Bet the set, you say, and then a 3 comes. Well, slow down, Polly. What situation are we talking about? If someone raises, someone calls, and I call a pocket 4s in the big blind, I am not leading. No. That's not what I'm saying. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. You want to be checking to the person who has the range and the nut advantage, and it's not you in the big blind. It's the initial raiser. So you want to check the initial raiser. Initial raiser is going to bet a lot of the time on 9-4-2 because they have the range and the nut advantage. Then they're either going to fold or call, whatever, and then you're going to raise. And then if they call and it turns a 3, it's fine because they don't have very many 6-5s. If it's a limp pot, say it goes limp, check, you check 9, pocket 4s in the big blind, it comes 9-4-2, you bet. And then if it turns a 3, you bet again because you're not really worried about ace-5 or 6-5 all that often. It's fine, right? If they do have it, it's okay. Realize you have a draw. Where do you draw the line between deciding to check with your marginal made hands when you're in marginal shape versus calling their range and all the junk that will get folded? I guess, but then deciding to bet with your marginal hands for protection. You want to be betting for protection very often when you are not so concerned about the person who should have had the range advantage, right? Like say early position raises, someone calls, you call button, comes 9-4-2, they check to you. Early position would have bet if they had a good hand, presumably. So when they check, it means their range is much weaker. The middle player would have bet if they had a good hand, so their range is much weaker. So now you very likely have a bit of a range advantage at this point given their actions. Let's see. As you wouldn't be able to get any extra value anyway, so it's fine to win the pot on the flop. Well, what you're saying here is that say they do have Jack 10 on 9-4-2. If you bet, they're going to fold, right? And you'd much rather bet and get them to fold that. But what I'm not saying is say a Under the gun raises, you call second. 4 more people call, and it comes 9-4-2. If under the gun checks, you probably just want to be checking here because it's kind of likely someone yet to act has a good hand. So you're basically just giving up on the pot. So you have to ask who is yet to act. Players yet to act are very, very important. When you're playing against bad players, do you play your hand or your range? I'm playing their hand more than anything because their hand is highly important. You just borrowed Small Stakes Hold'em, a book from long ago. Is that still relevant? No. That book is on Limit Hold'em. If you're playing Limit Hold'em, a Limit Hold'em strategy in the No Limit Hold'em game, that's not going to work for you at all. That book was good 15 or 20 years ago, whenever it came out. But we're not living 15 or 20 years ago. And we're not even playing Limit Hold'em anymore. If you're playing Limit Hold'em, you better be playing the big stakes because nobody's beating the small stakes because the rate's too high. Let's see. How do you deal with situations where you lose 4 all-ins in a row? Well, what do you mean deal with it? You just get over it. You're going to lose 4 times in a row sometimes. But yeah, Polly, you do not want to be leading very often at all. I'm actually going to be doing a webinar for the people who signed up for my Cash Game Masterclass in October on when to lead, specifically the turn. You really don't want to be leading the flop. A lead, by the way, is very different than betting. You'll see a lot of people in the poker media write, he led for 500 chips or whatever. But they're just saying, they're using the word lead to mean bet. And leading and betting are not the same. Leading is a donk bet, essentially. But you don't want to say donk bet because really, there are times to lead. Just because you lead doesn't mean you're a donk, right? You could be making a good lead. But you want to lead when you have an equity and an EV advantage, meaning we likely have the best, our range is ahead of our opponent's range, and we're going to have good playability on future betting rounds. All right, how are you playing hands like 6s, 7s, 8s in the big blind after the button raises? Call! Call and see the flop. Don't think you have to 3-bet 8s, 7s, and 6s. Stop it. Stop it immediately. Greg said, you didn't realize that book was on Limit Hold'em. Well, read a page or two, you'll figure it out real quick. The funny thing is, the books back in the day on poker, on Hold'em, you realize they're only talking about Limit Hold'em because that's the only game that people played back in the day. But Limit Hold'em's dead. Some people don't like the fact that Limit Hold'em is dead, but Limit Hold'em is dead. I posted on Twitter the other day that Limit Hold'em is dead. Tic-tac-toe is dead. Like, games that are easily solved are dead. Like, oh, it's not easily solved, the game still changes, etc., etc. I'm like, is the game dead? Observe the game. Games die for a few reasons. One of them is because the game is easily solvable. Another one is because the game is boring. Another one is because it's just not a good game. Maybe there's too big of a skill edge, right? 7-card stud is a good example of where the skill edge is too big, which kills all the bad players too quickly. Anyway, a few people got offended. They're like, oh man, look, we have a great game. 100-something people showed up to the World Series of Poker for the 10K. I'm like, there's one tournament a year, and you can only get 100-something people available for it? That sounds like a horrible failure. To me, I mean, look at a game like No Limit Hold'em where if they got 100 people for any tournament, it'd be like, ugh, they can get 100 people for 100K, right? And don't get offended because you made decisions to stick with a game or stick with doing something that is not practical and didn't make financial sense. A lot of people like to get offended. Try to not get offended. Instead, try to make good decisions. All right, let's see. A normal 1-2 game, people open for $15. You open $6, and everyone at the table calls. Is that bad? No, that's fine. Just play good hands. Play better hands than your opponent. How are you playing ace-king on the button where there's a raise from under the gun and a call from next position? I like calling. Oh, you're saying and then a 3-bet from the middle position? Depends on stack size. It's either call or 4-bet. One of the two. You like my shirt? Yes, we're representing my company, PokerCoaching.com. Check it out. If you're a Poker Coaching member, by the way, we'll send you patches. There's a patch right there on the wall. Or in the bookcase. We'll mail you some patches for you to wear. When people say books are outdated, is there truth to it? Books that were written not from a strong game theory optimal point of view will get outdated. And my first book is an example of this, right? Where I was actually playing pretty great poker in terms of GTO strategy, but I didn't know why, right? I was just lucky in that I was already a good poker player and I had sort of found very solid strategies through just playing Infinite and talking with all my friends who just happened to end up being all the best players in the world. And there were a few things in that book that were slightly off. because it was not based on good, fundamentally sound theory. That said, 95% of it is still great. If you look at the older books, they are not based on... They're based on how to beat the players in the game that we are playing against today, right? And so the most popular poker book, Harrington on Hold'em back in the day, was based on beating really bad players who just didn't understand poker at all. And that's great if your opponents don't understand poker at all. The problem is they kind of do now, right? So if you just sit there and play weak-type poker and only play the nuts, and then make a bluff every once in a while, they're going to figure that out, and it's not going to work for you. So, anyway, you need to learn how to play fundamentally sound, which is exactly what I teach, exactly what all the best players teach. I mean, certainly there is room for exploitative plays, I'm not saying that, but you always want to start from a good, fundamentally sound strategy and then adjust to whatever your opponents are doing wrong. That way you know where to adjust back to when they play well or you don't know what they're doing wrong. Alan, I'm not sure what you're asking. Would you bet half pot on the river out of position heads up against a tight reg when there's a 3 flush and a 1 to a straight on the board? Depends on your range. Depends on the range. You have to learn how to take constructive criticism. That is absolutely correct. Is Super System outdated? Yes. Is Poker Snowy GTO based? No, Poker Snowy is artificial intelligence based, which are very different things. GTO is solved using straight math. Poker Snowy and AI programs are design their strategy based on playing against each other for billions and billions of hands, and then coming up with a strategy that works best against that. So you'll find that things like Poker Snowy are going to be slightly off from solvers. Now, one thing worth mentioning: a lot of people just swear by PioSolver and assume it's the nuts, but it's not. You want to know why it's not? Because it really, really strives to be in heads-up scenarios, and it does not account for multi-way spots. There's a new program out. I say new, it's been out a few years now. It's called Munker Solver that gives you very different ranges than PioSolver will, pre-flop especially, because like if you study with PioSolver, there's a whole lot of flatting on the button. And I'm sorry, if you study with Munker Solver, there's a whole lot of flatting on the button. And it turns out Poker Snowy actually does a lot of that as well. And it's found these solutions by playing a bazillion hands and picking the best choice over a bazillion hands, whereas the solvers are using the math. So anyway, they're slightly different. What are my thoughts on check raising top pairs on boards like 9-4-2? Depends on how it goes, right? Say someone raises, someone calls, you call big blind, it comes 9-4-2. Initial raiser, you check, initial raiser checks. Now someone else bets, and then someone calls, and now someone else calls. That's a pretty good spot to raise. If initial raiser bets and someone calls, that's a much better spot to call, because in this scenario, initial raiser will have a lot of overpairs, right? Whereas the initial caller probably doesn't have so many overpairs. So you have the best hand way more often against when the caller bets as opposed to when the initial raiser bets. So you always have to keep the ranges in mind, right? You're going to play 4-8 this limit hold'em. Buy in for 10K and wear hoodies and sunglasses. Have fun. What are my opinions on the sites that are operating shadily? Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/USA. Go do that. Go watch that. So really, I want to go back to the question. I have to pack it up in just a few minutes. The initial question was, how do you play small pairs pre-flop and after the flop? And people who ask this question, I am very sure, drastically overplay them. They think because these hands are kind of high up on the hand ranking charts, that they have to play them aggressively. And they're like, oh, pocket eights is the 15th best hand. I have to raise and re-raise with it. But no, it's a marginal made hand pre-flop, and it's usually a marginal made hand after the flop. And marginal made hands are great when the pot stays small, but they are awful when the pot gets big. So, don't make the pot big. It's really the secret. But yeah, I have to back it up. I have to go get James. It's his third day of preschool. I have to bring him home. This will not be an issue going forward because this is an introduction week. But yeah, I have to go. If you all see me at Borgata, please say hi. I will be there for the next week. I arrive Thursday night. I'll be there for about a week. And we're playing lots of tournaments. So say hi, be friendly. We're having a breakfast for poker coaching members. You should have gotten an email. I think it's capped already. What's that other solver called? Munker Solver. Monker. Like a monkey. So yeah, if you wanted the Cash Game Masterclass, Larry, it is at pokercoaching.com/cash, or you can go to pokercoaching.com/premium to see everything you get as part of a Poker Coaching Premium member. I know a lot of the Poker Coaching members have upgraded because, well, there's significantly more content. There's over 100 classes, 30-minute classes, kind of like this, except for way more in depth because I can actually use a PowerPoint and think about it ahead of time and not have notes scribble on a notepad like this. Where we go through all sorts of, well, like everything, right? I mean, we've already discussed this topic there, I'm sure. And also there are lots and lots of quizzes, in-depth webinars by some of the best players in the world. We have a class coming out in the near future on overbetting by Jonathan Jaffe. I learned a lot from it. And I'm very, very proud of the program because I made a program that I wanted to learn from, right? I have the benefit of now having plenty of resources just to spend on content that I want. And if I want it, some of you probably want it too. So anyway, that's going to be it for today. You can check all that out at pokercoaching.com in the premium section. Also, at pokercoaching.com, if you never signed up, go get your completely free trial. Go through the homework, work hard, and you'll get better. You'll understand poker better, and you would have not asked this question of how to play marginal pairs if you'd done your homework in the homework section, because we go through this all the time. So yeah, have a great time. Have a great day. How long did it take me to profit from poker? Not very long, because I studied a ton before I ever played, and I started playing very small stakes. Don't think you just have to hop in big games and gamble your butt off. Study a ton. A ton. Way more than you think you need to. Get very good. Get way better than your opponents. Play a lot. And you can't lose. All right, have a good day. Good luck.